When life whispers, you don't belong, you've got two choices, believe it or make it shut up. Grace hated the sound of coins on Formica. Every Monday at 6 a.m. her mom, Linda, dumped a handful of change onto their tiny kitchen table in Ruston, Ohio, a factory town that smelled of river fog and burnt rubber. Quarters clinked against nickels, nickels rattled over pennies, and each metallic note seemed to announce one more thing they couldn't afford. Bus fare. A loaf of bread. The past-due electric bill. Grace sat with her backpack on, pretending to scroll her phone while Linda whispered the math under her breath, as if saying it louder would break something neither of them could fix. Their apartment was on the 5th floor of a walk-up built before Elvis hit the radio. Climbing the stairs was Grace's daily cardio and her crash course in optimism. Keep breathing, keep smiling. Act like this is exactly where you want to be. Her winter coat had belonged to a cousin she barely remembered. The lining was ripped and the buttons were dull, but Grace told herself vintage was in. The seniors at Ruston High disagreed. Every time she crossed the hallway, Vicky Peterson, captain of the Actually I Was Born on Third Base squad, clapped 3 times and announced, "Clear path, Salvation Army's doing a catwalk." Laughter rolled behind Grace like an empty soda can kick down pavement. Most teachers pretended not to hear. Ms. Whitaker, the brand-new AP calculus teacher with the spine of a Marine and the smile of a paper cut, did. On her first day, she scanned the room the way TSA scans luggage, looking for something suspicious to confiscate. Her gaze locked on Grace. "Class," she said, voice colder than the January wind off Lake Erie, "let Miss Reynolds," Grace whispered. "Let Miss Reynolds be a cautionary tale. If you can't dress for success, at least learn to blend in." Laughter exploded. Grace's cheeks went lava hot, but she kept her eyes on the textbook until the numbers blurred. That evening, she told her mom she'd stayed late in the library. In reality, she'd sat on a slushy bus stop bench watching dirty snow melt into gutter soup. Linda worked nights as an orderly at Mercy General, swapping soiled sheets for minimum wage and half a healthcare plan. She joked that she slept during the elevator ride between floors. Grace wanted to laugh, but the punchline tasted like pennies. Winter dragged its boots through March. The fridge wheezed and died. The landlord shrugged. Linda took out a payday loan. Prom posters bloomed in the hallway. A night in Paris, tickets $120. To Grace, that price tag might as well have been a ticket to Mars. "I'm skipping prom," she announced at dinner. Overrated. But after lights out, she scrolled Pinterest on stolen school Wi-Fi, pinning teal gowns and braided updos she'd never touch. Across the hall lived Ms. Rosa Alvarez, ex-circus acrobat turned freelance baker. One leg was shorter than the other, so she walked with a graceful tilt, as if still balancing on a high wire. Her apartment smelled like cinnamon and oranges. One Saturday, she knocked on the Reynolds door holding a garment bag. "My niece wore this once," she said. "It's begging for an encore." Inside shimmered a dress the color of dawn over Lake Michigan. Grace's heartbeat did a cartwheel, then crashed. "I don't have shoes." Linda disappeared into her bedroom and came back with black patent pumps from the late 90s. The heels were skinny, the toes rounded, the leather unscuffed. "Fashion is a circle," she said, voice half hope, half apology. Grace tried them on. Perfect fit, crushing fear. Prom season cruelty escalated like lake effect snow. Ms. Whitaker started calling Grace Miss Hand-Me-Down. Wrong answer? Maybe if you spent less time thrifting and more time studying. Torn backpack strap? Symbolic, isn't it, class? Some foundations just aren't strong. After one particularly savage comment, Grace sprinted out of the room, locked herself in the dark gym, and sat on the bleachers until the emergency lights clicked off. She typed in her phone, "One day I'll come back and they'll choke on their assumptions." She skipped 2 days. Linda didn't pry. She just smoothed Grace's hair when she thought her daughter slept. On the 3rd morning, Grace rose before dawn, tugged on a denim jumper, and marched back to school. Surrender wasn't an option. That same week, Mercy General cut Linda's hours. Grace applied for a janitorial shift at the Ruston Mall, 9 p.m. to midnight, Monday through Friday. She mopped marble floors under fluorescent lights that hummed like angry bees, then caught the last bus home, inhaled 3 hours of sleep, and showed up for homeroom with coffee-dark circles under her eyes. Prom money? Still a fantasy. So she hustled. Evenings, she wiped tables at the food court for tips. Weekends, she helped Ms. Rosa glaze sugar cookies shaped like little graduation caps. Royal icing roses blurred into constellations when exhaustion stung her vision, but the cash piled up, crisp fives and tens folded inside an empty mint tin. The Friday before the deadline, she slapped $120 on the student council desk. Ms. Whitaker, collecting payments, lifted an eyebrow so high it nearly escaped her face. "Well," she drawled, "I hope your wardrobe lives up to the investment." Prom night arrived beneath thunderclouds. Ms. Rosa hemmed the dress, lending brown hair into soft waves. Lightning flickered outside the window as Grace studied her reflection. The stranger in the mirror wore confidence like perfume. She exhaled and stepped into the storm. Ruston Civic Center glittered with string lights and rented chandeliers. Grace slipped to the back table, but whispers found her anyway. "Is that Grace Reynolds? She cleans the mall bathrooms, right? Cute dress. Shame about the Goodwill heels." Then Ms. Whitaker's voice sliced through the DJ's mix. "Some people think a ball gown can hide a poverty mindset. It can't." Laughter detonated. Vicky added, "Hope those thrift store stilettos survive the night." Grace's lungs collapsed. She bolted through the exit, down the concrete steps, into rain so fierce it felt like gravel. She ran 6 blocks, shoes sloshing, mascara bleeding. Linda opened the door before Grace's key hit the lock. Kitchen lights glowed warm. The air smelled of dill and chicken soup. They laughed. Grace sobbed, water pooling at her feet. "All of them. You. Me. Everything." Linda wrapped her in a towel in silence, then spoke. "I can't give you a new world, baby. But you can build one. Keep walking." Those words turned into steel. 4 months later, Grace boarded a Greyhound bound for Harborview, California, to study environmental design at the State University. Harborview's dorms reeked of fresh paint and last year's ramen. Her roommate, Tasha from Atlanta, loved blasting pop at 2 a.m. and decided Grace was mysterious. Really, Grace was just tired of being target practice. Day classes, night shifts. She found work at the 24-hour seaside diner by the train station. The scent of burnt coffee became her perfume, tips paid for textbooks. Regulars blurred until Daniel Shaw walked in. Mid-30s, architect, wool coat, voice like midnight radio. He noticed her sketching a storefront on a napkin. "Who's teaching you perspective?" "Google and insomnia," she shrugged. A week later, he slid his card across the counter. "My firm needs interns. Pays lousy. Experience isn't." Daniel was all deadlines and no pity. "Want respect? Earn it," he'd bark while Grace redlined blueprints at 11 p.m. She absorbed CD shortcuts, zoning codes, the physics of daylight. First win, redesigning the window display of a dying bookstore. She filled it with paper boats printed with quotes about travel. Foot traffic tripled. The owner cried. Daniel gave her a real paycheck. Project snowballed. A tech startup's office, a pediatric clinic waiting room, a co-working space carved from an abandoned train depot. 2 years in, Daniel said, "I'm launching a studio for public space makeovers. I want you as partner." Grace dumped every dime she'd saved into the LLC and signed a loan with 12% interest. Some nights she woke shaking, picturing foreclosure notices. Mornings she put on red lipstick and led her team of 5 like a general. The first big job was an arts plaza under the freeway. Suppliers flaked, city permits stalled, Daniel got pneumonia, and the budget bled. Grace hauled granite samples herself, negotiated with graffiti crews for mural rights, and washed pigeon droppings off steel beams at dawn. Opening day drew 3,000 people. Photos of her mirrored installation breathed trended on Instagram. Contracts poured in. By 22, Grace managed 12 employees and a 6-figure revenue stream. She remembered coin-counting mornings, so payroll hit on time and staff had dental. 10% of profits funded scholarships for broke freshmen who loved to draw. Yet the scar Ms. Whitaker left sometimes itched, especially when Facebook suggested people you may know, and Vicky's spray-tan smile popped up. One humid April morning, Linda called. "Guess who's organizing your 10-year reunion?" "They lost your number." Grace laughed. Pretty sure they never had it. That night, scrolling her calendar, she admitted she wanted them to see. Not revenge. Recognition. She spent a week crafting the armor, a charcoal pantsuit tailored in LA, minimalist heels, hair sleek in a low ponytail. She ordered macarons from a boutique bakery, tied with navy ribbon. For the Ruston High faculty, thank you for the lessons. 8-hour flight, 3-hour layover, rental car through back roads lined with soybean fields. Ruston hadn't changed. Empty storefronts, the tang of factory smoke, the river dragging its own reflection. Ruston Civic Center smelled of bleach and nostalgia. Plastic tablecloths, Costco veggie trays, a DJ spinning 2010 hits. Grace entered as Vicky finished a joke. Silence pin dropped. Ms. Whitaker, silver streaks in her bob, leaned on a mahogany cane near the stage. Recognition flickered across her face like a faulty bulb. Grace delivered the macarons. For you and the staff, Ms. Whitaker. Appreciation never expires. The teacher's jaw clenched, but she nodded. During the Where Are They Now segment, Grace spoke last. Co-founder of Shoreline Studio, projects in 3 states, community grants, TEDx talk next month. No dollar figures, no bragging tone. Applause thundered. A few jaws hung open. Grace felt a backpack slide off her shoulders she'd forgotten she still wore. Outside, lake effect snow drifted under streetlights. Vicky shuffled over, styrofoam cup of punch in hand. Look, we were idiots back then. I'm sorry, she muttered, eyes on her heels. High school is a petri dish for idiocy, Grace said. We survived. Vicky exhaled like she'd been pardoned. Ms. Whitaker appeared next, cane tapping. Grace, I owe you an apology. A teacher's words shouldn't scar. Mine did. I was wrong. Grace's throat tightened. I accept. But remember, your voice can build or break a kid. Whitaker bowed her head, as if finally learning a formula she'd always failed. Next morning, Grace visited Ms. Rosa. The hallway smelled of clove and citrus. Rosa hugged her so hard Grace heard a rib protest. You bloomed, Nina. We bloomed, Grace corrected, eyes shining. Before flying back, she met Ruston High's principal. I'd like to fund a makerspace, 3D printers, drafting tablets, scholarships. Anonymously, the principal blinked behind smudged glasses. You're serious? As heart attacks, Grace smiled. In California, she opened a padded envelope mailed to her hotel, a watercolor of Ruston High sign W. Whitaker, thank you for the second chance. Grace tucked it into her laptop sleeve. 3 years later, Shoreline Studio pitched a redesign of Ruston's riverfront. Amphitheater, reading garden, solar-powered light sculpture called Voices. At the city council meeting, Grace noticed a skinny teen in an oversized hoodie, earbuds dangling, eyes full of practiced cynicism. The girl stared at the scale model the way Grace once stared at boutique windows. Afterward, Grace found her on the steps. Hey, what did you think? Looks cool, the girl shrugged. Stuff like that never happens here. Grace handed her a card. Free digital art classes at our satellite office all summer. You should come. Why would you do that? Grace smiled. Because once, someone told me promises were the best I could hope for. They were wrong. Standing under the Ohio sky, Grace felt the circle close. She was no longer the punchline, nor the avenger, nor the girl begging to be seen. She was a bridge between mornings that smelled of pennies and futures that smelled of fresh paint. When the girl finally pocketed the card and walked away, Grace whispered into the wind. Don't listen when life says you're extra. We've got plans to build. And the river, wide and patient, carried her words downstream towards somewhere brighter. That's the end of our story. We hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. Your feedback means a lot to us.